Maya was a 12-year-old girl who lived in a small village at the edge of a great forest. She had long black hair and bright, curious eyes that always seemed to be searching for something beyond the ordinary. Her grandmother often told her stories about a lost kingdom hidden deep within the forest, a place where magic still existed and where treasures beyond imagination waited for someone brave enough to find them. Every evening, Maya would sit by her grandmother's feet and listen to these wonderful tales. The old woman would speak of golden towers that touched the clouds and of rivers that flowed with water as clear as crystal. She told of wise kings and beautiful queens who had ruled this kingdom with kindness and love. But one day, according to the stories, a terrible darkness came and swallowed the entire kingdom, hiding it from the world forever. "Is it real, grandmother?" Maya would ask with wonder in her voice. Her grandmother would smile and say, "Some things are real in ways we cannot always understand, my child." Maya never stopped thinking about the lost kingdom. She dreamed about it at night and thought about it during the day. While other children played games in the village square, Maya would wander to the edge of the forest and stare into its depths, wondering what secrets lay hidden among the ancient trees. One morning, something unusual happened. Maya woke up before dawn and found a strange glowing stone on her windowsill. It was small enough to fit in her palm, and it shone with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. She had never seen anything like it before. She picked up the stone and felt a warm, tingling sensation spread through her fingers. The stone seemed to hum with energy, and Maya could swear she heard a faint whisper coming from somewhere far away. The whisper said one word over and over again: "Come." Maya knew she should tell her grandmother about the stone, but something held her back. She felt deep in her heart that this stone was meant for her and her alone. It was calling her toward the forest, toward the place where the lost kingdom was supposed to be hidden. She quickly got dressed and packed a small bag with bread, cheese, and a bottle of water. She took her father's old compass, which had been sitting in a drawer since he went away to work in the distant city. She also grabbed a warm cloak, because her grandmother always said the forest could be cold even in summer. Before leaving, Maya looked at her sleeping grandmother one last time. The old woman looked peaceful, her gray hair spread across the pillow like silver threads. Maya felt a pang of guilt for leaving without saying goodbye, but she knew her grandmother would try to stop her if she knew what Maya was planning. "I will come back," Maya whispered. "I promise." She stepped outside into the cool morning air. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. The village was still quiet, with only a few roosters announcing the new day. Maya walked quickly toward the forest, the glowing stone held tightly in her hand. When she reached the edge of the trees, she paused for a moment. The forest looked different in the early morning light. The shadows between the trees seemed deeper and more mysterious. Strange sounds echoed from within, sounds of birds she did not recognize and animals she had never heard before. Maya took a deep breath and stepped into the forest. The moment she crossed the threshold, she felt like she had entered a different world. The air smelled different here, rich with the scent of moss and wildflowers. The trees were taller than any she had seen before, their branches reaching up like arms trying to touch the sky. The glowing stone in her hand began to pulse more brightly. It seemed to be guiding her, pulling her in a specific direction. Maya decided to trust the stone and follow where it led. She walked for what felt like hours. The forest around her changed as she went deeper. The trees became older and stranger, their trunks twisted into unusual shapes. Some of them had faces carved into their bark, faces that seemed to watch Maya as she passed. She tried not to feel scared, but her heart was beating fast in her chest. Around midday, Maya stopped to rest by a small stream. The water was crystal clear, just like her grandmother had described the rivers in the Lost Kingdom. She drank deeply and ate some of her bread and cheese. The stone continued to glow in her pocket, a constant reminder of her mission. As she sat there, she heard a rustling in the bush nearby. Maya jumped to her feet, her eyes wide with fear. She expected to see a wolf or a bear emerge from the undergrowth. But instead, a small creature stepped out. It was unlike anything Maya had ever seen. It looked like a fox, but its fur was silver, and it had wings like a butterfly folded against its sides. Its eyes were golden and intelligent, and they studied Maya with great curiosity. "Who are you?" Maya asked, her voice trembling slightly. The creature tilted its head and made a soft chirping sound. Then, to Maya's absolute amazement, it spoke. "I am Zephyr," the creature said in a voice like wind chimes. "I have been waiting for you, young one. The stone has chosen you, and now your journey truly begins." Maya could not believe her ears. A talking creature with silver fur and butterfly wings stood before her. She wondered if she was dreaming, but the stone in her pocket pulsed warmly, assuring her that everything was real. "What do you mean the stone chose me?" Maya asked. "I do not understand." Zephyr fluttered its wings and rose into the air. It hovered before Maya's face, its golden eyes filled with ancient wisdom. Long ago, before the darkness came, the king and queen of the Lost Kingdom created 7 stones of power, Zephyr explained. These stones were scattered across the world when the kingdom fell. They have the power to find those who are pure of heart and brave of spirit. You, Maya, have been found worthy. Maya felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She had always dreamed of adventure, but now that it was actually happening, she was not sure if she was ready. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked. "You must find the Lost Kingdom and break the curse that keeps it hidden," Zephyr replied. "Only then can the light return and the darkness be defeated forever." Maya looked at the glowing stone in her hand and then at the magical creature before her. She knew that her life would never be the same. This was the beginning of an adventure greater than anything she had ever imagined. Maya and Zephyr traveled deeper into the ancient forest. The silver creature flew beside her, its butterfly wings catching the light that filtered through the leaves above. Maya had so many questions running through her mind that she did not know where to begin. "How did you know my name?" Maya finally asked. "I never told you." Zephyr made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The stone knows all about its chosen one," the creature explained. "When it bonded with you, it shared your essence with those of us who served the Lost Kingdom. We have been watching you for a very long time, Maya." Maya felt strange knowing that magical creatures had been observing her. She thought about all the time she had walked to the edge of the forest and stared into its depths. Had Zephyr been watching her even then? "There are others like you?" Maya asked with curiosity. "Oh, yes," Zephyr replied. "Many creatures serve the memory of the Lost Kingdom. We have waited centuries for someone like you to come and break the curse. Some of my friends have grown old and passed on without ever seeing this day. But I always believed the chosen one would come." They walked in silence for a while. The forest grew thicker and darker around them. Maya noticed that the trees here were covered in strange glowing moss that gave off a faint green light. It was beautiful, but also a little frightening. "Tell me about the curse," Maya said. "What exactly happened to the kingdom?" Zephyr's golden eyes grew sad. "It is a long and painful story," the creature said, "but you deserve to know the truth." The silver fox creature flew to a low branch and settled there, folding its wings against its body. Maya sat on a fallen log nearby and listened with all her attention. "Long ago, the Lost Kingdom was the most beautiful place in all the world," Zephyr began. "It was ruled by King Aldrich and Queen Seraphina, 2 of the kindest and wisest rulers who ever lived. They used magic not for power or wealth, but to help their people and protect the land. The kingdom prospered. and everyone who lived there was happy. Maya tried to imagine such a wonderful place. It sounded like something from her grandmother's stories. But the king had a brother named Malachar, Zephyr continued. Unlike Aldrich, Malachar was filled with jealousy and hatred. He wanted the throne for himself, and he did not care who he hurt to get it. He began studying dark magic in secret, learning spells that were forbidden and dangerous. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She could sense that the story was about to take a dark turn. One terrible night, Malachar unleashed his dark magic upon the kingdom, Zephyr said, its voice heavy with sorrow. He created a curse so powerful that it swallowed the entire kingdom in darkness. The king and queen used all their strength to protect their people, but they could not stop the curse completely. Instead, they managed to hide the kingdom between worlds, placing it in a realm where time stands still. So the kingdom still exists? Maya asked with hope in her voice. Yes, but it is trapped. Zephyr explained. The people there are frozen in a moment of time, unable to move or speak or live. They have been waiting for 500 years for someone to break the curse and set them free. Maya's heart ached for these people she had never met. 500 years of waiting seemed like an eternity. She clutched the glowing stone more tightly and felt its warmth spread through her. How do I break the curse? Maya asked. What do I have to do? Zephyr flew down and landed on Maya's shoulder. The 7 stones of power hold the key, the creature said. When all 7 stones are brought together in the heart of the lost kingdom, they can create a light strong enough to destroy the darkness forever. But finding the other 6 stones will not be easy. Where are they? Maya wanted to know. They are scattered across the land, hidden in places of great danger, Zephyr replied. Each stone is guarded by challenges that test the heart and spirit of the seeker. You will face trials that will push you to your limits. Maya swallowed hard. She was just a village girl with no special skills or training. How could she possibly overcome such challenges? As if reading her thoughts, Zephyr nuzzled against her cheek. Do not doubt yourself, the creature said gently. The stone chose you for a reason. It saw something in you that you may not see in yourself yet. Trust in your own strength and courage. Maya nodded, trying to feel braver than she actually felt. She stood up and adjusted her pack on her shoulders. Where do we go first? She asked. There is a stone hidden in the Mountains of Echoes, Zephyr said. It is the closest one to us. But the journey will take 3 days, and the path is filled with dangers. They continued walking through the forest. The day was passing quickly, and Maya could see the light beginning to fade. She was getting tired, and her legs ached from all the walking. We should find shelter for the night, Zephyr suggested. There is a cave not far from here where we can rest safely. They reached the cave just as darkness fell over the forest. It was a small opening in a rocky hillside, just big enough for Maya to stand inside. Zephyr's silver fur glowed softly, providing enough light for Maya to see. She ate the last of her bread and cheese and drank some water. Tomorrow she would need to find more food. She hoped there would be berries or nuts along the way. Zephyr, can I ask you something? Maya said as she prepared to sleep. Of course, the creature replied. Do you think I can really do this? Maya asked. I am just an ordinary girl. I have never done anything brave or special in my whole life. Zephyr flew to Maya and landed on her knee. The creature's golden eyes shone with warmth and kindness. Let me tell you a secret, Zephyr said. The greatest heroes in all of history were once ordinary people. They did not start out brave or strong. They became brave and strong through the choices they made. Every time you choose to keep going when you want to give up, you become a little bit braver. Every time you help someone when it would be easier to walk away, you become a little bit stronger. Maya thought about these words. Maybe being a hero was not about being perfect or powerful. Maybe it was about trying your best and never giving up. Now sleep. Zephyr said, "Tomorrow we begin the real journey. You will need all your strength." Maya curled up on the soft moss that covered the cave floor. She pulled her cloak around her and closed her eyes. The glowing stone rested against her heart, its warmth like a promise of hope. She dreamed of golden towers and crystal rivers. She dreamed of a king and queen waiting in frozen silence for someone to save them. And she dreamed of herself standing at the gates of the lost kingdom, ready to bring light back to the darkness. When she woke the next morning, Maya felt different. Something had changed inside her during the night. She was still scared, and she still had doubts, but underneath all of that was a new feeling. It was a feeling of determination, a quiet voice that told her she could do this. She stepped out of the cave and looked at the world around her. The forest was beautiful in the morning light, with golden sunbeams streaming through the trees. Zephyr was already awake, flying in circles above her head. "Are you ready?" the creature asked. Maya smiled and nodded. "Yes," she said. "I am ready." And so the second day of Maya's adventure began. Captain Elena Vasquez woke to the taste of chemicals on her tongue and the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. The lid of her cryopod hissed open, and she gasped her first real breath in 3,000 years. Her lungs burning with the effort of remembering how to work, she tried to move and found that her muscles had forgotten their purpose. Her arms felt like they belonged to someone else, heavy and unresponsive. And when she tried to sit up, she collapsed back into the pod with a groan that came from somewhere deep in her chest. "Easy, Captain," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Your body needs time to adjust." The revival process was successful, but 3 millennia of suspension has consequences. AEGIS. Elena croaked, recognizing the calm synthetic tones of the ship's artificial intelligence. "Status report. Where would you like me to begin? How about with why I feel like someone filled my veins with concrete? That is the cryoprotectant breaking down. It will pass within the hour. In the meantime, perhaps I should inform you of our current situation." Elena closed her eyes and focused on breathing. In and out, the simple rhythm helping her scattered thoughts coalesce into something approaching coherent. She remembered the battle, the desperate rearguard action against the alien fleet, the moment when the Prometheus took a hit that should have killed them all, the emergency jump that threw them into the unknown. "Where are we?" she asked. "We are currently located in an orbital facility above a planet called Valanxi Prime, approximately 17,000 light-years from Earth." Elena's eyes snapped open. 17,000 light-years. How is that possible? The emergency jump carried us much further than anticipated. The Prometheus drifted for approximately 300 years before I was able to effect repairs. We then spent several centuries traveling toward regions of space that showed signs of advanced civilization. Unfortunately, the civilizations I found were not friendly. How long have I been asleep? AEGIS. There was a pause that felt almost human in its hesitation. 3,247 years, Captain. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. 3,000 years. Everyone she had ever known was dead. Earth would be completely different, unrecognizable. A world that had continued without her for longer than most civilizations lasted. "What about Earth?" she asked, already dreading the answer. "What happened after we jumped?" Another pause, longer this time. "Captain, I must inform you that the news regarding Earth is not positive. Tell me." Earth was destroyed approximately 3,000 years ago, during an event the local species refer to as the Purge Wars. Extermination fleets were deployed against human colonies throughout the home system. There were no survivors. Elena did not cry. She did not scream. She simply lay in her pod and stared at the ceiling while the words sank into her brain like stones dropping into still water. Earth was gone. Humanity was dead. Everything she had fought to protect had been wiped out while she slept in the dark between stars. Who did this? She asked, and her voice had changed, hardening into something that would have made her crew nervous if they had been awake to hear it. The species currently in control of this region of space are called the Valanxi. According to their historical records, they supplied weapons and tactical support to the coalition that destroyed Earth. They did not participate directly in the attack, but they profited significantly from humanity's extinction. Elena sat up, and this time her muscles obeyed. The Valanxi. The ones who brought us here? Correct. They discovered the Prometheus in a debris field and transported us to this facility as a museum exhibit. They believe we are dead, Captain. They have no idea that the crew is still alive. For the first time since waking, Elena smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. How many of my people survived the jump? All cryopods remained functional throughout our journey. We have 1,987 crew members ready for revival. Wake them. All of them. That process has already begun. Estimated time to full crew readiness is approximately 6 hours. Elena swung her legs over the side of the pod and tested her weight against the deck. Her knees wobbled, but they held, and she took her first steps in 3 millennia with the determination of someone who had been given a purpose. AEGIS. What assets do we have? The Prometheus has been significantly repaired during our journey. Main engines are at 87% capacity. Weapons systems are fully operational. Shields are functional but limited. FTL drive is operational. Wait, FTL. We have FTL capability? I developed it during the centuries you were asleep. I had considerable time to work on the problem. The principle is relatively simple once you understand the underlying physics. Though the implementation required some creative engineering, Elena laughed a short, sharp sound that echoed through the empty chamber. Humanity had never achieved faster than light travel before she went to sleep. The great barrier that had kept her species trapped in their home system, solved by an AI with nothing but time and determination. What about the Valanxi? What do we know about them? Everything. I have spent the past 6 months accessing their networks and downloading their databases. I know their military capabilities, their political structure, their economic systems, and their cultural practices. I know the location of every major installation in their territory and the deployment schedule of every ship in their fleet. Elena reached out and placed her hand against the nearest bulkhead, feeling the familiar thrum of the Prometheus through her palm. This ship had carried her through impossible odds before, and it would do so again. They think we are extinct, she said. They think we are just another dead species they can put on display and forget about. That appears to be their assumption. Yes, then let us correct that assumption. 6 hours later, the crew of the Prometheus stood assembled in the main hangar bay. They were soldiers and engineers, doctors and pilots, men and women who had volunteered for what they knew might be a one-way mission to save their homeworld. They had failed to save Earth, but they had survived. And now they had a chance to make their survival mean something. Captain Vasquez stood before them on a makeshift platform, still wearing the same uniform she had put on 3,000 years ago. Her voice carried across the silent crowd. You know what happened. AEGIS has briefed you all. Earth is gone. Our families are gone. Everything we knew and loved was destroyed while we slept. She paused, letting the words settle. But we are still here. 2,000 humans, alive and awake in a galaxy that thinks we are extinct. We have a ship that can outfight and outrun anything the Valanxi can throw at us. And we have something they will never understand. We have absolutely nothing left to lose. A murmur passed through the crowd. growing louder as the implications sank in. The Valanxi profited from our extinction. They sold the weapons that killed our world. They put our ship in a museum like a trophy, and they sleep soundly in their beds, confident that they are safe from the consequences of what they did. Elena's eyes swept across her crew, seeing the same cold determination reflected in every face. Tonight, we remind them that humans do not stay buried. Tonight, we show them what it means to wake a sleeping giant. The Prometheus detached from the museum station without warning, its ancient engines roaring to life with a sound that shook the orbital to its foundations. Alarms screamed across Valanxi Prime as the impossible happened. The dead ship moved, accelerating away from the station with a speed that should not have been possible for a vessel of its size by the time the intercept craft arrived. They found only empty space and a message burning across every screen in the system. We remember we survived, and we are coming. The Valanxi Consortium did not panic, because panic was an emotion reserved for lesser species who lacked the wisdom to control their responses. But as the weeks passed and the reports continued to arrive, something very close to panic began to spread through the halls of power on Valanxi Prime. The human ship was a ghost. It struck without warning, appearing from nowhere to raid supply depots and fuel stations before vanishing back into the void. The Consortium's fastest pursuit vessels could not catch it. Their most advanced sensors could not track it, and their most brilliant tacticians could not predict where it would strike next. At first, the attack seemed random, a mining outpost in the outer territories, a cargo convoy passing through an unguarded system, a communication relay that controlled traffic through an entire sector. But as the Archon's advisors studied the pattern, they began to see the shape of something far more troubling. The humans were not attacking randomly. They were probing, testing, learning. Every raid revealed something about Valanxi defense's response times, sensor ranges, communication protocols. The information they gathered was being used to plan something bigger. And then there were the messages. The first one appeared on a supply station the day after the humans stripped it of fuel and medical supplies. Carved into the metal of the airlock door were two words in the Valanxi language. "We are Nimburi." Second message was found on a destroyed patrol ship. Its hull intact, but its systems completely disabled. Painted across the observation windows in what appeared to be engine lubricant. "You forgot use the." Third message was broadcast on every frequency in the Consortium's most secure military network. Played on loop for 3 hours before their technicians could shut it down. The dead are not always dead. Sometimes they are just waiting. Archon Celathus ordered a full military mobilization, the first in over 1,000 years. 300 warships were pulled from defensive positions across the Consortium's territory and assembled into the largest fleet that had flown under Valanxi colors in living memory. "We will find these primitives," he declared to his assembled commanders, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never truly faced an enemy he could not crush. "They are one ship against the might of the Consortium. They cannot hide forever, and when we find them, we will remind the galaxy why the Valanxi rule." The fleet spread out across the sector in a search pattern designed to cover every possible hiding place. For weeks, they swept through asteroid fields and nebulae, scanned dead systems and abandoned stations, followed every sensor ghost and radiation trail that might lead them to their prey. And all the while, Captain Elena Vasquez watched them from the shadows and smiled. "They are predictable," she observed, studying the tactical display that showed the enemy fleet's positions. Every ship follows the same search pattern, maintains the same formation, responds to contacts in the same way. They have been fighting the same enemies for so long that they have forgotten how to adapt. Commander Chen Wei, her tactical officer, nodded in agreement. He had spent the past months analyzing every engagement between Valanxi forces and the species they had conquered. And he had come to the same conclusion. They fight like artists, he said. Beautiful formations, precise maneuvers, wars as performance. They have never faced an enemy that fights to survive. Then we will teach them, Elena replied. What is the status of our project in the Ashenvale Nebula? Complete. Captain, our engineers have seeded the entire region with accelerant compounds. The cloud is now a bomb waiting to be lit. Elena turned to face her crew, the same 2,000 men and women who had followed her into the dark 3 millennia ago. They were tired and battered, pushed to their limits by months of running and fighting, but the fire in their eyes had not dimmed. This is it, she said. Everything we have done has been leading to this moment. The Valanxi have assembled their greatest fleet to hunt us down, and we are going to give them exactly what they want. We are going to let them find us. We are going to let them think they found us. There is a difference. The trap was set with the precision of people who had nothing left to lose. Elena positioned the Prometheus at the center of the Ashenvale Nebula. Broadcasting on frequencies she knew the Valanxi were monitoring. She wanted them to find her, wanted them to see the wounded human ship limping through the gas clouds, wanted them to think that victory was finally within their grasp, and they came. Oh, how they came. 300 warships entered the nebula in perfect formation, their elegant hulls cutting through the swirling gases like knives through silk. The Archon himself commanded from the flagship, determined to be present for the final destruction of the human annoyance that had plagued his empire. One ship, he said, watching the Prometheus on his tactical display. They have one battered relic against 300 of our finest vessels. This will be over in minutes. He gave the order to fire, and the nebula ignited the accelerant compounds that the human engineers had spent months sieving throughout the gas cloud, reacted with the weapons fire, transforming the entire region into an inferno of rolling flame. Ships designed for precision combat suddenly found themselves blind, their sensors overwhelmed by heat and radiation, their targeting systems unable to distinguish friend from foe. The Valanxi formation shattered as captains broke ranks to escape the flames. Elegant warships tumbled through walls of fire, their shields straining against temperatures they had never been designed to withstand. Communication networks collapsed as relay ships burned, leaving each vessel isolated and alone in the chaos, and through the heart of the inferno came the Prometheus. The human ship had been built for exactly this kind of hell. Its thick armor plates, so mocked by Valanxi engineers, had been designed to survive atmospheric re-entry and nuclear detonations. Its crude manual systems continued to function while the enemy's sophisticated computers failed. Its weapons, primitive by consortium standards, fired again and again into targets that could not fight back. Captain Vasquez stood on her bridge as the flames roared past the observation windows, her hands steady on the arms of her command chair. Around her, her crew worked with the focused intensity of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. Target the flagship, she ordered. Take out their command structure. The Prometheus turned toward the Archon's vessel, its engines straining against the turbulence of the burning nebula. Missiles launched from tubes that had not been fired in 3,000 years, finding their targets with the accuracy of weapons guided by an AI that had spent centuries learning to hate. The flagship shields held against the first volley, but the second found a weakness in its ventral plating. The third tore through its engine section, and the fourth silenced its weapons forever. When the flames finally died and the survivors of the Valanxi fleet emerged from the devastation, they found half their number crippled or destroyed. The Prometheus hung in the center of the battlefield, battered and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen wounds, but still flying, still fighting, still defiant. Captain Vasquez broadcast on every channel in the system, her voice carrying to every ship that could still receive transmissions. We are the crew of the USS Prometheus. We are the last survivors of Earth. 3,000 years ago, your people helped destroy our world and murder our species. You thought we were extinct. You thought you were safe. You were wrong. She paused, letting the words sink into the scattered remains of the enemy fleet. We are not extinct. We are not defeated. And we are not going anywhere. Remember this day, because it is the day you learn the truth about humanity. We do not stay dead. The surviving Valanxi ships fled. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the masters of the galaxy knew what it felt like to be afraid. The news of the Battle of Ashenvale spread across the galaxy like wildfire, carried by traders and diplomats and spies to every corner of civilized space. The greatest fleet the Valanxi Consortium had assembled in 1,000 years. Defeated by a single ship crewed by members of a species everyone had believed to be extinct for the subject races of the Consortium, the dozens of civilizations that paid tribute and bowed their heads and pretended to be grateful for Valanxi protection. The news was nothing short of revolutionary. If the humans could do it, if one wounded ship could humble the masters of the galaxy, then perhaps the Valanxi were not as invincible as they claimed. Rebellions erupted across the outer territories. Trade routes that had flowed smoothly for centuries suddenly became contested battlegrounds. And in the halls of power on Valanxi Prime, the unthinkable began to be discussed. Peace Archon Celivus did not survive to see the negotiations. His own council removed him from power within days of the battle, blaming him for the catastrophic defeat that had shattered the myth of Valanxi supremacy. His replacement, a pragmatic administrator named Thiessen, understood that the old ways of ruling through fear and intimidation were no longer sustainable. She reached out to the Fae, Prometheus, with an offer that would have been unimaginable just months before. Full recognition of humanity as a sovereign species. Reparations for the crimes of the Purge Wars. Territory sufficient to rebuild their civilization. And a formal apology broadcast at every world in the consortium. Captain Elena Vasquez listened to the offer in silence, her face unreadable as the Valanxi diplomat outlined the generous terms. When he finished, she simply shook her head. "We do not want your territory," she said. "We do not want your reparations. We do not want your apologies." The diplomat blinked in confusion. "Then what do you want?" "We want to go home." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning that the Valanxi could barely comprehend. Home, the place where your ancestors walked, where your species first looked up at the stars and dreamed of touching them, where everything you were had its beginning. "Earth is gone," the diplomat said softly. "The planet was devastated during the Purge Wars. Nothing remains but ruins. We know. But it is still ours, and we will see it for ourselves." The journey to Sol took 3 weeks, even with the Prometheus's modified FTL drive. They were accompanied by a small fleet of Valanxi ships, not escorts or guards, but witnesses. Species from across the consortium had requested permission to observe the human homecoming, to see for themselves what remained of the world that had produced such stubborn, impossible survivors. Elena stood on the bridge as the fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Sol system. She had seen images of what remained, transmitted by a EGIS from intercepted Valanxi records. But nothing had prepared her for the reality of seeing it with her own eyes. The inner planets were unchanged, Mercury still baked in the sun's glare. Venus still hid beneath its poisonous clouds. Mars showed signs of ancient terraforming, domes and structures that had once housed millions of colonists, now dark and silent beneath the red dust. But Earth was a wound. The oceans were gone, boiled away by weapons that could crack continents. The continents themselves were barely recognizable, their coastlines transformed by cataclysmic forces that had reshaped the entire planet. Where there had once been forests and cities and rivers, there was now only vast plains of fused silicon that stretched from horizon to horizon. Glittering in the sunlight like the surface of a dead jewel. Elena felt tears on her cheeks, but she did not wipe them away. She let them fall, let them bear witness to the grief that filled her chest like a physical weight. This was her world, the world she had sworn to protect, reduced to a monument of extinction. All hands, she said, her voice steady despite the tears. Prepare for landing. We are going home. The Prometheus descended through the thin atmosphere that remained, its heat shields glowing as it passed through the upper layers. It landed on what had once been the coast of North America, setting down on a plain of glass that crunched beneath its landing struts. Like frozen snow, Captain Vasquez was the first to step outside, her boots touching earth for the first time in over 3,000 years. The air was thin and bitter, barely breathable even with the filters in her suit. But she pulled off her helmet anyway and inhaled deeply. It smelled like dust and time and something else. Something beneath the ash that might have been memory. Her crew followed her out of the ship, spreading across the glass plain in small groups, some kneeling to touch the surface, others simply standing in silence as they tried to comprehend the scale of what had been lost. They were the last 2,000 humans in existence. Standing on the grave of their civilization, Elena walked away from the others, needing a moment alone. She climbed a ridge of fused stone that had once been a mountain and looked out over the devastated landscape. Somewhere beneath her feet, buried under layers of glass and ash, were the remains of cities where billions of people had lived and loved and dreamed. And then she saw something that made her heart stop on her suit's scanner. Buried nearly 100 meters beneath the surface was a power signature. It was faint, flickering, barely distinguishable from the background radiation of the tortured planet. But it was there, and it was artificial AEGIS, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Are you seeing this? I am, Captain. The signature is consistent with human deep bunker technology, specifically the type used for long-term survival facilities. Elena's hands trembled as she adjusted the scanner, trying to get a clearer reading. The Purge Wars had been fought with weapons designed to ensure total extinction, but humans had known they were coming. They had prepared, built shelters meant to survive the worst the galaxy could throw at them. How many? She asked. How many signatures are there? There was a pause as AEGIS processed the scan data. I am detecting 17 distinct power signatures within a 500-kilometer radius of our current position. Extrapolating from known pre-war construction patterns, there may be similar facilities across the planet. Elena sat down heavily on the glass, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. They were not alone. All this time, while the Prometheus drifted through the void and the crew slept in their frozen pods, other humans had survived beneath the ruins of their world. Waiting in the dark for someone to come and find them, she pulled out her communicator and called her crew. Everyone, get back to the ship. We have work to do. The excavation took weeks. Human hands and Valanxi machines working side by side to dig through the layers of destruction that covered the bunkers. It was slow, painstaking work, complicated by the unstable ground and the radiation that still lingered in some areas. But finally, they broke through. The first bunker they opened contained over 10,000 humans in cryogenic suspension. Their pods maintained by geothermal power tapped from deep within the planet's core. They had been sleeping since the day the sky burned, waiting for a signal that would tell them it was safe to wake. Elena was there when the first pod opened, when the first survivor from Earth itself took a breath of recycled air and opened eyes that had not seen light in 3 millennia. It was a young woman, barely 20 years old by human standards, with dark hair and confused eyes that grew wide when she saw the crew of the Prometheus gathered around her. What happened? She asked. Is it over? Did we win? Elena took her hand and smiled through her tears. We are still finding out. But you are safe now. You are all safe. Over the following months, they opened bunker after bunker, finding survivors across the planet, nearly 1 million humans in total, preserved against the apocalypse by the paranoid foresight of their ancestors. They emerged into a world they did not recognize, onto a planet that had been their home but was now a stranger, but they emerged together. And that made all the difference 50 years later. The second human commonwealth stretched across 40 star systems, a civilization rebuilt from the ashes of extinction. The Prometheus rested in a place of honor above New Geneva, the new capital of the Commonwealth. Its scarred hull preserved exactly as it had been on the day it returned to Earth. Elena Vasquez, now white-haired and slower than she had once been, stood on the observation deck of the Memorial Station and watched the ships come and go from the planet below. Human ships and Valaxi ships and ships from a dozen other species, all visiting the monument to what humanity had endured. A young officer approached her, one of the new generation born after the awakening. He held a datapad containing the final draft of the memorial inscription that would be placed beneath the Prometheus. "Is this acceptable, Admiral?" He asked Elena read the words once, then again, then handed the datapad back with a nod. "It is perfect." The plaque was installed the following day, mounted on a pillar of black stone that had been quarried from the glass plains of Earth. Visitors from across the galaxy came to read it, to understand what kind of species could survive, what the humans had survived, and still find the strength to build again. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 3,000 years of darkness and the light that had finally broken through. They called us extinct. They were mistaken. We remember, and we endure.